actual house. It's like, but we're gonna lose it, which sucks. But okay,
What do you mean?
Streaming started.
We'll
This
talk
is
about
wallpaper. Like I can.
You're gonna lose the wallpaper.
Yeah.
The thing about wallpaper,
we can't find it again.
you can't take it with you.
No. It's like all your accomplishments. Welcome, Adrian. Happy to have you. I'm going to bring in quotes from and like questions and shares and stuff from the comment thread. But I wanted to start with the moment that the second time I met you, and we were at a party, and we were eating dinner, a bunch of people, and the host was like, "I want everyone to get up and like say, what they are about in the world or something like that." And people are like, I run this company or whatever. And then I don't know if you remember this, but you stand up and you go, I've been a boy and now I'm finally becoming a man. And then you sat down. That was it. And I was like, I don't know who that guy is, but I'm going to go talk to him. We're going to have fun. How's that?
I love your memories of me are so granular. Like the second time, that's a good memory. My memories of you just clumped together in one big cuddly love fest.
Yeah, that's even better.
Just one big bear hug.
Thank you. Yeah, well, it's easy. You're easy to love, and I feel very loved by you.
Love you too.
Thank you. Yeah.
So is that a question, or do you want me to confirm? Am I still a man, or have I fell back into?
Are you a man? Did you make the transition, and what's it like to be a man?
Yeah, very gratefully so. I did make the transition just in the nick of time to become a father.
Yeah.
And now that I am a father, I can't imagine having children still, like, carrying on like a teenager myself, like a kid, babies making babies, like that whole, like, I can't imagine being a parent as a kid. It's not just being not like a child, but being child and immature in your mind. And I'm really proud of the fact that I was able to find it within myself to let go of those immature indulgences and selfishnesses in order to be a stable example for my children, so that they can have the freedom to be kids, relying on the like stable energy that I can bring to them. It's not all about me. It's and I'm proud of that. So yes, I have managed to make that full transition into adulthood and have not wavered. Well, I leave room to be human, of course, but for the most part, I'm standing on 2 feet upright, taking care of the fam.
I see it. It's true. It's beautiful. Do you think the essence of it is that it's not all about me? Like that kind of boyishness is still self-centered?
Yeah, I think it is. It's about, I see it twofold. It's one about having that selfish aspect where you're looking to please something within you, whether it be like pleasure or power or acknowledgement, comfort, versus holding space for, even in discomfort, for the things that are bigger than the moment, and really having a vision for a long-term potential, even if it means that this immediate moment it doesn't feel great, or it's hard, or you're waking up early, you're doing the things that are hard for the greater good. Yeah. And you start to realize that you're not just a man, you're a family, you're a neighborhood, you're a kingdom, and you're living for the greater good of that whole. and into the future, planting seeds for trees who you may not enjoy the shade of. And
very literally for you.
well, yeah, very literally. Yeah, and I don't. It's not, and it's not that it's not fun, but it's hard. It's harder, and it can be lonely. It can be a bit lonely, and I used to really fear loneliness, and I used to thrash around looking to satisfy that hole in myself that felt isolated or alone, and then fill that void in as much as I could. And now I spend a lot of time just resting into that, knowing that even though I am mortal and my life is short, which sort of brings the imperative up. So like, okay, I gotta like be better now for the sake of my children in this moment, in this life. But then also recognizing that the things I'm doing and that I'm building are for an infinite game and a longer time horizon, so that it makes me have a sense of being connected to the infinite or to the timelessness, or knowing that the things I'm doing are part of a long conversation throughout time and throughout lineage and throughout history.
Amen. So we got a comment. And so, okay, you're like, you're Hollywood superstar. You could keep going, all these offers. You could just ride that wave, all kinds of offers and temptations and seductions. And for some reason you didn't. What was the catalyst that made you realize that you need to become a man?
Well, and there's so much media and narratives that are seducing you towards this grandiosity. I was literally conditioned by rock stars, by artists, to live in the moment, to burn hot. Better to burn out than fade away. And all these stories of that I think are, maybe an artist's immediate communicating a feeling or an idea, but it wasn't a spiritual angle. It's a creative. It's hot and bothered. It's chaotic. It's angsty, and I very much indulged that and loved the idea of being that tortured artist and being a creative, and I'm touching the chaos and touching the discomfort and the traumas in order to pull out something creative and cool and shock people a bit, and that got me very far in the business as an actor, willing to do things or push the edge or the boundaries or exploit myself or indulge a sensational something. And then the thing that got me on the straight and narrow is pretty vanilla and plain and obvious. It's a spiritual thing. It's, you start to look for something bigger than yourself. You look, towards God. And this isn't necessarily a religious lecture here, but whatever God is to you. And that's what I had to find out, is like, when I'm oriented towards my purpose on this planet, like, is it towards something divine and beautiful and godlike, spiritual, or is it towards am I peering into the navel, into my own, reflection?
Right. And this is kind of like, I a little bit framed it you as like having an integral spiritual journey. And it's kind of this aspect where it's like aiming towards something divine, something much bigger than yourself, and doing it in a bunch of ways, like an actual spiritual practice, and also deep psychological work, and also kind of showing up in sustainability and building a farm, and literally getting your hands dirty. there's something that I admire, I find beautiful about that. You're like, I'm going to hit it on all fronts. I'm not just going to be like, oh yeah, I need to grow up and maybe have a little bit better perspective and whatever. You're like, no, I need to like actually confront my shit.
Yeah, well, I think women, one of the biggest revelation I had was not that there is a God, but that women are a direct line to source consciousness, to God itself, that women are the oracles, that they are the messengers, if you will. Are you there?
I'm
Can you
here.
hear
Yeah.
me?
You good? We can
Okay.
hear you. You're cruising.
So when I was living life for myself, my indulgences, my career, whatever that is, I, I wasn't appropriately I wasn't in right relationship to the women in my life. And it wasn't until I fell in love and the woman who's now my wife, Jordan, cued me into the fact that I had some major work to do, some fixing to do, that I started to do the hardest part of the work in order to win the heart of my love. And so that's what happened, is she sort of inspired me to be a better man. She wanted me, she made me want to be a better man.
Yeah.
And when I finally, after a couple of years of heavy lifting and doing some deep soul work, that I was able to actually reapproach her and say, I think I got something that might, vaguely emulate that thing, but I'm still working on it. But would you give me a shot? And after we talked, she confirmed that, I was worth keeping around, because you never stop the work, right? But I was at a level or a stage where she'd have me, and then now ever since we've been doing the work together, and now doing it through children is a whole nother level of spiritual uplift.
Amen. Yeah. I mean, I always love talking with you about that. And it's interesting. One thing I'm noticing, I want to get to other questions. I love getting so personal, but, one thing I'm noticing is like, you don't seem to shame yourself for being imperfect in a way that I think is really powerful and unique.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think I'm doing it to avoid the discomfort
No.
of knowing what a rascal I've been, a full sinner. I mean, straight up abusive, selfish, hurtful, destructive, like, we could get into it. And I think it's important to fully recognize the truth of that reality. The things that you've done, the people that you've hurt. In order to truly make amends, you have to really fully own that thing. But then, to stay there and define yourself in the absolute static state of being, that doesn't allow for the creative potential of growing into a new version of yourself. It becomes indulgent if you're flogging yourself or
Yeah.
sitting in shame. So can you fully integrate that shadow, that dark part of yourself, so that it becomes an integral part of who you are, which is, it's a catalyst, it's a it's an energetic, like, momentum, it's a inertia forward into growth. But yeah, I continuously try to tap back into the memory and the muscle memory and the awareness of that part of myself. It's still very alive, it's still real, without doing it out of shame or self-hatred, because that keeps me from being the best I can be in this moment. But it reminds me, it's almost like an intuition. It's like that, all that like self-awareness and learning settles into the intuition layer of yourself, so that because you could easily fall back into that decision making if that intuition isn't online. So you have to keep it alive and keep it present while it's becoming less and less defined and acutely defining yourself in the moment or your actions, but it's still there vaguely helping guide you away from those previous decision patterns.
Cool insight just came to me. These things came together. It's like, oh, right, of course, shaming yourself is being self-indulgent, and actually using that awareness to build the intuition is in service of this higher purpose to contribute to your family and to the world around you.
Well, we have a whole world to build. Like, we have a whole future to create. It ain't over, right? So it's almost you still holding on to not wanting to let go of that, but just from now, and now instead of the indulgence of it, now it's you're indulging it from a different angle. I was talking about this with my wife today. Not that I wanted to talk about the Epstein files, but as untoward and like terrible and horrible as all of that is, I see the media, and I've studied media, and I made a movie about it, Teenage Paparazzo. I don't know if you've seen that. You should check it out. So it becomes like this study on gossip and media and the hall of mirrors, which is, all of us now, especially with our phones. But so, you have these terrible humans who are actively indulging in that lifestyle, and let's not even talk about how terrible it is. But then you have the media sphere, which are taking all of the content that came out of the Epstein files, and now they're using it to indulge it from a different angle.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's helpful. It seems like it's just exploitive in a different way.
Yeah.
It's like a gossip rag, but now it's our mainstream media.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Man, so many directions. Okay, I want to just bring in some comments. The notion of shame as indulgent is fascinating. I like that one. There's also a question, this is kind of related to this maturing. Do you think Entourage would still get made today? And
I've thought about it. because there's so many reboots these days, and frankly, I could use the paycheck. So I've how do we crack the code on the reboot? Because obviously it would be difficult to make post Me Too and all this stuff. It's certainly possible. I have my ideas on how it would be remade. I think it would have to be, there'd have to be some supernatural elements that come into it. One supernatural event that we'd expect the audience to accept in order for the whole movie to make sense. Like they go back in time and they have to convince them to live better lives in order to save the future. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Something fun.
Yeah. It's almost like a parable of like, you have to face the mistakes of the past. Like the movie's actually about making amends, but it's like via this, right. Like, yeah.
Like I imagine they like go into a supernatural movie theater to watch a premiere that had some like artifact that made it supernatural, and then they end up falling into a woke future.
Right.
And then they have to like live in the woke future somehow.
So you're like, yeah, probably it wouldn't get made again today. And it's cultural progress, but like not in the way that most people would think. Like, yeah, Me Too, not so good. But like, you're like, no, because it was promoting a set of values that were like not high on integrity.
But look, there's a such thing as comedy, and I think we lost our humor for a little while there. And so I don't personally
All I can think of when you say that is politically incorrect jokes, and I'm like, oh god.
But it's like a guilty pleasure where we get to see all the things play out and hear all the things said that we would hope that we could say. But there comes a point when the slapstick or the comedy becomes hurtful, and I don't know what that line is. It's not up for me to say.
I think you're kind of, in a funny way, you're kind of a specialist though, right? At not with comedy so much, but with the shadow. Like, you want to go as close to the line as you can without crossing over it. And then your wife kind of like keeps you in check, and there's this kind of beautiful dance.
Well, so do you find, yeah, I mean, so
I don't know if that's true for you, but yeah, how do you make sense of that? You can ignore the question.
no, I don't know. Like, I just find that I don't want to lose my humor, but at the same time, I personally refrain from potty jokes or like locker room talk, just because it's such a slippery slope, and I have a hard time finding that line.
Yeah.
So, and in today's age, you keep crossing the line because it's getting you more clicks, it's more sensational, and we've lost the balancing act between sophisticated comedy that uplifts and challenges the intellect, and then the stuff that just keeps you in a state of shock and awe.
Yeah, I guess I think the comedy that has integrity for me to do is where like the stabbing goes both ways. So like, UpTrust for a long time had one woman on staff, and now we have 0. Like, I mean, my sister's being super helpful, but she's not full time right now. And so like making jokes that kind of like points out how we're a little like something is not quite right in tech culture or in our culture, that we can't like have an equal balance of women, like that implicates like me and my team. And so like I'm the brunt of the joke, and that feels like that then I can make an inappropriate joke as long as like I'm getting cut by it too.
And are you talking about like your company culture in terms of the jokes you guys make amongst each other?
Yeah, or the jokes that I feel like have integrity, that are maybe on the line or something. This is weird territory to go in. I don't know if
welcome to our lives.
yeah, right.
The big bear hug of love and awkwardness.
Yes. That's true.
I love that. I mean, like, I really do appreciate it, because even if it's not funny, challenge, like, comedy is a great way to challenge status quo.
Yeah.
And push the discomfort of like, things. I like to go to those edges too, but I do it more, philosophically, like, well, why wouldn't this be, okay in a society that, like, just having those abstract,
what if the moon landing was faked? I mean,
it keeps all this stuff keeps my mind fresh. It's when, I guess, when the rubber meets the road, when thoughts become actions and then become patterns that you've committed to. Because we can indulge ideas and have conversations, and it's low risk when it's in the abstract.
Yeah.
And so I reserve the right, and I think we all should enjoy and indulge the opportunity to have conversations, to challenge each other, to make fun, to explore ideas, to use UpTrust, to have important debate and conversations. That's all fine and good. It's when it goes into the realm of like, now we're actually building a community or like a cult around this idea, then you might want to consider how it's the validity of it.
Yeah. 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 Well said. So yeah, let's talk a little. I mean, I really love touching on these kind of personal psychological layers, and I think it's so intimate, and it's also so much a part of building a healthier future, and it's something that we love connecting on. But let's dive into some of these things about sustainability. We got a question here about. I didn't even know this, by the way. You're a regional Goodwill UN ambassador and co-founder of the Lonely Whale. According to Wikipedia and according to this comment, I'm like, that's sick. That's really cool. Um, what inspired you, and what advice do you have for folks wanting to make an environmentally conscious changes in their everyday life?
Yeah, so I've been doing environmental work for many, many years, and I'm always updating and rethinking my approach to the work. One thing that I've become disillusioned about in nonprofit work is that it becomes ineffectual at a certain point, because suddenly you're entrenched in the organization and having to raise money to pay for overhead. And it's a lot of the complaints people have, like, oh, like 90% of the money goes to overhead and then the 10% goes to the work.
Yeah.
I don't think that's inherently a bad thing up until a point. So I always want to refresh or rebrand or rethink, what it is I'm doing and why. Because there's also an ego to the things you build, and you don't want it to die, even though you on some level recognize that you're not really making the change you want to or think you should. So, so I'll just confess, the UN ambassadorship was amazing. It's a great title. It has a fantastic ring of legitimacy to it. But I don't know. I have to say, I don't know how long that title, how long I was entitled to the title, because I never feel like I haven't been to the time. I continue to do the work. I continue to do work in sustainability and environmental stuff. But as far as being a UN ambassador, I mean, I guess I have to clock in at some point, which I haven't. I haven't given a speech there in a number of years. I mean, they haven't approached me and said, "Hey, man, you're only allowed to use the title for 1 year," because there's always a president, right? Even after they leave office.
Yeah.
So once a UN ambassador, always a UN ambassador.
I don't see why not. I mean, former UN ambassador.
Yeah, I don't know if I answered the question, but I guess I would, to anybody who's looking to do environmental stuff, it's the type of thing you just gotta get your hands dirty, literally get in there. There's no list of to-dos that you can check off, and you 10 Hail Marys, you go to heaven. This is for me at least, it's a relationship to the earth. It's a relationship to how you consume things. It's a relationship to your very thoughts and where you direct them and how you live. And I always say, earth care is self-care, and then also take care of yourself, because we need your energy to be present and working at its best capacity for the cause throughout your long life. So don't burn yourself out. Don't take the weight of the world on your shoulders and get anxious and have environmental despair. And we need your light and fluffy, creative optimism working out in the world. And so, in terms of specific solutions, that's a regional, local thing, as far as I'm concerned. A lot of these big, sweeping, absolute carbon reduction plans and all that, I tend to find to be nice sounding, but because of the complexity of nature itself, there's not a one size fits all. The nature it really needs micro, regional, hyperlocal solutions addressing the complexity of like certain regions or certain microclimates or certain areas or certain communities. And that's particularly why I decided that I wanted to do a micro community on land with like a farm and environmental stewardship ethos and lifestyle built in, because it was hyper local and it addressed what our needs are regionally and for our own well-being and betterment, without having to save the earth, heal the world. Like that's such a big, grandiose, again,
self-indulgent.
Like I've given speeches at the UN and other big notable podiums and platforms where I call these environmentalists out. There seems to be this arrogance to the cause, where people think they're going to save the world, and then they cry or they glue themselves to things that people don't do what they say. Like it's pretty unhinged. When I find the environmental work that I've come to realize is it's a much more humble, like when you're working with the earth, when you're working with the soil, when you're working with natural systems, you realize your place real quick. You're like, whoa, like I am just simply attempting to understand how the earth works in its natural systems and work in harmony with it, and hopefully, if I'm lucky, cultivate it so that it has abundance, so that it can thrive, let alone like save it.
Right. There's a kind of paradox that you're speaking to, where like the more personal you get about your relationship with the earth, the more humble you get, and the more like impersonal and grandiose, like the more egotistical. And I'll do a quick shout out. Like, you do courses on permaculture, so like if people are around in Texas and they want to learn stuff, like they can get their hands dirty with you.
Yeah, we've been starting to offer in-person courses and classes, and our nonprofit mission is to bring people closer to the earth. And you can certainly take one of our courses. We do one a quarter. Well, I think we're going to do another one in April.
Yeah.
So yeah, check us out. All that good stuff.
Yeah. We'll put a link in the thread somewhere. But somebody, SSC, looked it up and said you're still listed on the UN page. So keep using the title.
Nice. I have to get my badge.
You get your badge. Show up to the UN and be like, hey. Let's talk Bitcoin.
Oh, fuck. Are we hodl?
We got some maximalists in the crowd.
Everybody, are we hodl?
We are. I mean, I guess now is an intense time to talk Bitcoin, but I'm like, it's accumulation phase, right?
Are we buying? Yeah, I mean, it's uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable right now.
You've been into it for years now, and you've done the full like scam shitcoin cycle, and still full Bitcoin, right? I mean, like me, I'm only speaking from opportunity. I've been scammed. I've been left with a bag of shit.
Yeah, but then you become a maxi, and it has its own religiosity unto itself. And right now, I'm starting to lose my religion. I'm losing faith.
Oh no!
What's going on? Yeah. I mean, I look. The reality is, our economic system was invented, right? It was created, and it seems to be challenged right in this moment. Think back to when we got off the gold standard and went to the dollar standard, and that was within memory, right? Relative, somebody alive was there at the time, I'd imagine. What was it, 1960 something?
Yeah, for sure. Our parents were alive. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, there was volatility there and that sort of thing. So I think that Bitcoin is a great option. I believe in the concept of digital gold, of being unbounded by physical space or time, being sovereign and totally, like self-custody,
Mm,
self-custodied.
yeah.
But that's scary shit too.
Scary shit
Like,
too.
I want like the nanny central banks to take care of me, and FDIC to bail me out if things don't work out. I want all that stuff, but at the same time, I don't think we're going to get to the next phase in our economy and our culture unless we're going to take some risks and get out of this mess, because the current system doesn't seem to be working out very well either.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, it is. It's interesting because there's a quality of like wanting in that maturation process to be more sovereign and, like you said, self custody. And you have your land. You're growing your own food. You kind of set up. Keep going.
No, but so Bitcoin is a store of value, and so it's not the only store of value, right? So you have money in the bank, sure, but then maybe you diversify in gold and silver and blah blah blah. Maybe you have some mutual funds, and maybe you buy a house. Maybe you own some rare garbage pail kids or some, baseball cards. Your grandmother's china. But then you get into the things that really are a direct source of wealth for the human being, which is food, like good, wholesome, organic, nutrient-dense food, so you can store food. Then you store seeds for future crops. You could store water, which is supposedly going to be the next
Commodity.
oil. Yeah, the next commodity that's going to like be really scarce and hard to find. Energy, battery storage, good times, and a sense of well-being with community. That's something you can create and store. So I really think in many ways the community that we're building here is a big battery that can store all of these things that are vital to human flourishing. And we can look at money as a tool of exchange, but ultimately that's where the real wealth and like, if you can have land, community, peace in yourself, meditate and store some of that up. So you think of stores of value beyond the dollar or beyond money,
Yeah.
as a way of like a principle.
Yes, I love that principle. Love that holistic vision. It's so true. Like all the Bitcoin in the world can't get you that community and that meaning and that purpose and that that shift that you made to be like, oh, this woman that I love, I'm not actually man enough for her yet, and I need to go do some work. Um, in your vision, like you've been at this vision for this land and this community for years. What were some of the biggest surprises to you in like making that dream, that sustainability dream, like hit and touch reality?
Well, I guess I had this fantasy that I was going to be like a farmer guy, that was going to like gain all these primitive skills, and I was going to learn how to, sheetrock and, build foundations and do the electric and like also harvest and, have animals husbandry and do all the things, which growing up in New York, like the farm of knowing how to do any of that stuff. And I've learned a lot of that, to some degree. I'm proud of myself for at least, on some level, like some minute level, trying it out. But what I realize is ultimately there's a skill set that I have, and it's not farming. It really is within the hearts and minds communications realm. And for better or for worse, like I'm in entertainment for a reason, and so now I'm I'm back to recognizing that my main contribution and skill set is to building the community and the story of this thing, to help bring human energy into, you know, the system. So really, it's not that I'm building, you know, healthy natural ecosystems. I'm really building natural cultural ecosystems and community ecosystems. And that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of fun and also important, because it's not just about, you know, the food and all of the, you know, the stacking functions of the different elements so that you can have an abundant crop that year, but it's also about the humans that come and are participating in that, the family structure, the governance, all of that is just as important, because you need a village to for these things to make sense economically, and for those the things that we crave as humans to be met and fulfilled, because we're so isolated and fragmented as a culture. We don't even know how to be in close relation to one another. You know, we send our parents off to homes. We, you know, have to go it alone and do it by ourselves. You know, we have these houses that are divided by fence lines, and so how do you actually bring back the thing that really makes human beings thrive? And it's not the competition. It's not that we're at odds with one another. It's that we know how to collaborate and know, and we actually do, we do better when we're in partnership and in tribe with one another.
Right. Right. I mean, this is one of the things, like in the theme of like, hey, wait, can we do better? And we're looking at these like coordination and reality and stuff. I mean, I think you're on the frontier exploring like, okay, the modern world really fucked up how to do like community basically. And one thing I think you're on the frontier of, and I've mentioned this to you before, is this, you're like, okay, there's some things that are really good about being local and being together and being on land, this kind of like more ancient way of doing things. But you're also like, there's new governance structures and there's new forms of money. And there's like a lot of like willingness to lean in. Like you're not just a traditionalist in some sense. You're like, there's a lot of value and goodness there, but there's also a lot of like new things that we're trying to lean into. And you're like, how do I do that? How do I do that mix?
Yeah, for certain. Yeah, we're not trying to go backwards in time. So they say, like one of my favorite quotes is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. You know, I think we've done the alone thing. We went fast and like a lot of technological advances, and it was just sort of, you know, the cult of the individual and the, you know, rugged individuality and stuff like that. But how do we now rebuild a tribal sense of well-being that allows us to have a deeper, richer connection to each other, ourselves, the earth, and spirit, so that we can have latitude in our experience as opposed to just, you know, trying to scamper up the ladder.
Yeah. So in that, it makes me want to talk about politics and religion. So this tribal quality is like both something we need and are sorely missing, and is like totally fucking psychotic in the modern world. And what do you do when like there's people you love, maybe on a text thread or something like that, and suddenly it starts getting vicious and they don't like your politics?
Wait, are you asking me what do I do when I lose all my friends because they don't like my politics?
How do you handle that? What do you do? and how do you organize a community when that shit's happening in the world?
You know, you gaslight them and blame them for, you know, for not knowing the fuck you're talking about. It's tough. I mean, a lot of people are very sensitive these days. You know, they take it very personally. They feel scared, and everything feels so dire and absolute. I mean, and I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, but I have a hunch that there's a lot of manipulation, a lot of media rhetoric that's, making us think we're all going to die, or if there's something that's going to happen, that we need to worry about. And, I think it's important to be mindful and aware on some level of the global realities. But I do live my life very, very local, and I stay in this moment, and I try and affect change in the things that I know I can actually make headway. And again, back to the spiritual thing, because it does connect into it. I'm living this moment. I'm making decisions in this moment, not for change out in the political sphere this quarter or this election cycle. The things I'm doing are creating a patterning, a psychological rhythm that will only see effect, in a decade, or, I'll be long gone. So you really have to, I think, keep a spiritual eye on the future that is beyond this immediate moment, because I don't know if you can actually, I find a lot of people, like, it breaks my heart. And again, I could be wrong. Okay, maybe I'm not seeing something. Please tell me if I'm missing the script. But I see so many young, intelligent people full of energy wasting it out in the streets. And perhaps there's something so dire that they're protecting us from that I'm not seeing. But I feel like that all that energy can be, and when I look at what we're building here to just take care of a piece of earth so that we can eat in ways that our food systems tell us isn't possible, we need you here tilling this land and, making sure that the systems of agriculture work on a hyperlocal level. And when you stop off at Burger King and grab yourself a quick bite on your way to the protest, I just don't know if it breaks my heart, because I feel like your energy has been hijacked by some thing that is destructive and is not constructive, and it feels like so dire and immediate. But I just don't. I guess I just don't see that that's the best and highest use of your time and energy.
Right. Yeah, it's a theme that I've been hearing throughout, like, the conversations today. It's like this kind of, I don't know, almost like these ideologies, or these kind of self-organizing structures that perpetuate and kind of destroy rather than build. And, like, all this and intelligence and capacity aiming towards, like, really building something beautiful and good, instead of trying to oppose something or tear something down.
But don't destroy the thing, replace it with a better system. Or what's that saying?
I know what you're saying, but I can't remember it.
Yeah, like when I see these, like, autonomous zones that they're creating, I'm like, I mean, it's interesting to me. In many ways, I'm building an autonomous zone. Like, we are self-governed. We are creating our own rules of engagement with each other in community. We're taking those conversations about who we are, what we are, why we're engaged in certain behaviors over others, and how we all work together functionally, how we work through conflict. All that stuff is something that we are working on actively, so that we can be a sovereign whole unit, like an island of cohesion. So I get, like, the idea of, like, being sovereign, not taking orders from corrupt governments. And, I'm into, like, the whole, sovereign currencies of Bitcoin, for example. But when you set up this autonomous zone with makeshift barricades and tents that you buy from, uh, you know,
Walmart.
Temu,
Oh, Temu.
Walmart, you know, whatever. Like you, and you're again, you're like you're order. I mean, where's the food coming from? You know,
Yeah.
what you are you really outside the system, or are you just this you know, a corruption within the system itself? I just don't know if that's the kind of sovereign solution that I would propose as a way to um, replace the existing system.
There's a contradiction in it. It's like the Jenga block trying to knock out the lower layers of the tower.
I don't get the analogy, but yeah.
Weird analogy. There's like what I'm hearing you say is like, so it's like, oh yeah, we're going to build this autonomous zone, and but then it's like, wait, everything that was required in order to survive day to day in that autonomous zone was built from the system that the people doing that are criticizing and trying to overturn.
It's not a reinvention. It's just you're just isolating yourself and then just screaming into the void. And I don't know how it's been thought through. I mean, maybe there are people who have been thinking through these things and they're like, no, this is the way to do it, man. Like, get a bunch of garbage cans and some couches and put it here and like block out the outside system. And now, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of interesting, intentional communities and stuff that I find curious and worth taking a look at. I think we were just in Denmark. We went to Christiania, which do you know Christiania in Copenhagen?
No.
I've
heard of it. I've heard of it. Yes.
So it was like an old military barracks, and these like old hippies like started squatting there, and then at a certain point they took over, and it's just right in the middle of the city, and they declared themselves sovereign, autonomous, and they're like, we're outside the system. And they were sort of tapping into electricity, and then at certain points they had to, basically bring their garbage and get the city to deal with it. And so they're sovereign, except not entirely. Anyway, there's half the city's supportive of what they're doing. Half the city's like telling the government, go in there and just evict them and get, do something. They've been there for 50 years or like a long time. And it's a cool little city where there's, there are no laws or no rules. So there's a lot of bohemian, artsy, cool stuff happening. But they recently just made a deal with the city to buy it outright. So now the people within the community own it. But the way the deal they made, they had to give up a certain amount of the land to these high rises, which at the end of the day, it's like all that effort and work, and they ultimately have just gotten somehow sucked back into the system. Right. So are you really truly outside the system? Can you just work within the system but nudge it forward?
You still here?
Did we freeze?
No, we got you. Maybe I froze, but yeah. And even is such a sovereignty a thing? Does it exist at all? I mean,
we're all emergent. Like, we're emergent from each other. We're emergent from the thing before us. And, it's what we were just talking about before, integrating, transcend and include. And like, so the idea of growth or evolution has to always recognize that you are still an integral part to the previous thing.
Yeah.
So you have to leave room for it, as you're fighting the fascists, you are the fascist, it's like, oh wait, I have to leave room for that part of myself. And it's complicated.
Yeah. That white dot in the black of the yin yang.
Mm-hmm.
We could keep
Yes.
going, man. There's good topics that we can dive much deeper into. We didn't even get to touch on any real good conspiracy theories, or information ecology, or I know, right? But we're gonna wrap up here in the next minute or so. Closing thoughts, feelings,
Oh, dude,
reflection.
now I want to talk about information ecology.
I know, right? And church. I want to talk about your I don't know what to call it, church of the land, the spiritual community you're cultivating.
Yeah, I mean, we're really just it's like a third rail. You know, that you say spiritual church, people get triggered, and I don't quite get it, but we are seeking divinity through land stewardship. Like when we take care of and steward, you know, the earth that God created, you know, you see reflections of his majesty. You see the design wisdom built within it, you know, and you only like an highly intelligent, evolved spiritual being could have manifested something so dynamic and beautiful and gorgeous and fruitful and amazing. So without being able to know God, we can know the work, which humbles us into looking and seeing reflections of his majesty and divinity, or hers, or his through her.
Yeah. Amen. What a beautiful note to end out on. Music. That's the other thing that I was like, oh man, there's so much, but that's okay. We'll have to do another.
Okay, well, hold on. We'll I think the kids are asleep, so.
Woo! Well done. Thank you so much, Adrian. Thanks for being here and helping.